Raised on the island of Fortuna, Nero was born to the elder son of Sparta, Virgil, and an unknown woman. However, Virgil left before Nero was born, not even knowing of his existence, and his mother either could not or would not raise him, leaving him in an orphanage where he would be named Nero after the black blanket he was found in. Not much is known about Nero's past before the events of Devil May Cry 4, but what we do know is that at some point he would be taken in by the parents of Credo and Kyrie, sometime before their deaths at the hand of demons. He would then be trained by Credo and would join the Order of the Sword, a religious organization dedicated to the Dark Knight Sparta, despite not believing in the Order's teachings, as a Holy Knight, and would quickly become one of their most skilled members. Shortly before the events of Devil May Cry 4, Nero and Kyrie would be attacked by demons, and during this attack, Nero would be injured, causing his demonic powers to awaken in the form of his Devilbringer, which he began to train himself to use in secret. During the Festival of the Blades, Nero would attempt a ceremony being led by the Order's leader, Sanctus, but during the ceremony, Dante would appear and would assassinate Sanctus. A group of knights would then attempt to confront Dante, but would all be slain. After believing that Kyrie was in danger, Nero would intervene, attacking Dante, and with the use of his Devilbringer was finally able to fight him off. Under orders from Credo, Nero then tracked Dante to Fortuna Castle, where he encountered the Order member Agnes, who revealed to Nero that the Order had been experimenting on and summoning demons, as well as creating the Hellgates using the shattered remnants of the Yamato. During this encounter, Nero would be gravely injured, and after restoring the Yamato, he would awaken to his first Devil Trigger, and would decide to go to the Order's headquarters to get answers. Upon arriving, Nero would be met by Credo, who would reveal that he had orders from a resurrected Sanctus to capture Nero and would transform into a demonic form resembling an angel. The two would then battle and Credo would be defeated, but after the fight, Kyrie would appear and would become frightened upon seeing Nero's Devilbringer for the first time, before being kidnapped by Agnes, resulting in Nero and Credo putting aside their differences and splitting up to search for him. Nero would be the one to find them, and after a rematch with the transformed Agnes, Sanctus would interrupt, taking Kyrie once again. Now enraged, Nero would rampage through the Order's headquarters until meeting Dante once again, with Dante telling Nero that he wanted the Yamato, revealing it to have been his brother's. The two would fight once again, but this time Dante would easily beat Nero, and after the young man would calm down, Dante would allow Nero to keep the sword and go after Sanctus. Nero would then continue, finding Sanctus at the top of a platform, along with a giant dormant demon known as the Savior. Eventually, Nero and Sanctus would then engage each other, and during this battle, Sanctus would take the Yamato and Credo would intervene but would be killed by Sanctus. Nero would then be captured and absorbed into the Savior and would be used as its main power source. Sometime later, Dante would recover the Yamato and would rescue Nero, returning the blade to him. Nero would then find Sanctus inside the Savior and would once again do battle. But this time, Nero would be victorious and would rescue Kyrie. After the two escaped, Sanctus would merge with the Savior, and after a quick fight, would once and for all be destroyed by Nero. Afterwards, Dante would permanently entrust the Yamato to Nero and would leave the two now that his job was done. Born sometime in 1994, Yu Narukami would live a mostly normal life up until the age of 16, when his parents would need to go overseas for a year on business. However, wanting to keep their son in school, they would have him move in with his uncle and younger cousin Ryutaro and Nanako Dojima in the small country town Inaba. Then, on literally the second day he moved into town, the body of a local announcer would be found strung up on a telephone pole. Shortly after this, he would hear rumors of the Midnight Channel, which, if viewed at midnight, would supposedly show someone their soulmate. Being curious and deciding to try it out for himself, Yu would discover that the rumor was actually true, and he would try sticking his hand in the TV but would be unable to fit himself in. The next day, while visiting a supermarket with his classmates Chie Sadanaka and Yosuke Hanamura, they would come across the electronics section, and Yu would try to investigate, finding that he could actually still fit his hand in it. Seeing this, Chie and Yosuke would panic, and all three would end up falling inside, finding a foggy area somewhat resembling a TV set. After investigating, the group would find a creature resembling a stuffed bear calling himself Teddy, who would warn about creatures called shadows. However, just as he did this, these creatures would appear and attack the teens, which would result in Yu awakening his persona, Izanagi, and destroying the creatures with his new powers. After this, Teddy would rush to let the group out of the world, and that night, Yu would have a dream where he would meet the dwellers of the Velvet Room, Igor and his latest assistant, Margaret, as well as a girl around Yu's age named Marie, and together they would explain personas as well as Yu's unique power of the wild card. The next day, Yu and the others would be told that their classmate and a girl that Yosuke had a crush on named Saki Konishi had been killed, causing him to make a connection between the TV world and the Midnight Channel, realizing that the girl they saw on it was Saki. Yosuke would then convince Yu to enter the TV again with him, and the two would find Teddy and convince him to help them locate where Saki had been taken. However, once they arrived, they would find a new kind of shadow, a powerful one born from Yosuke's repressed negative emotions, and after rejecting it, it would take its true form, forcing Yu to fight it. After the shadow's defeat, Yosuke would be convinced to accept the shadow, transforming it into his persona. After investigating further, Teddy would confirm that someone had been thrown in, and Yu Yu would agree to help investigate this new world with Yosuke. The two wouldn't have to wait long, as Chie's best friend Yukiko Amagi would go missing shortly after this, and Yu, Yosuke, and Chie would go in to rescue her, with Chie and Yukiko both gaining their personas the same way Yosuke did. The group would then agree to use their powers to prevent any more deaths and hopefully catch the killer. After this, the group would rescue two others from the TV world who would also join the team, Kanji Tatsumi and Rise Kujikawa. However, after rescuing Rise, the body of Yu's homeroom teacher, Mr. Moraoka, would be found, leading the investigation team to the conclusion that the killer had changed his methods. After a bit of investigation and again checking the Midnight Channel, they would find that a young suspect named Mitsuo had entered the TV, and after pursuing him and dealing with his shadow, they would recover him and he would admit to the crimes, being arrested. Shortly after this, however, a young detective named Naoto Shiragane, who had been investigating the group, would come to them with a theory that Mitsuo was only a copycat killer, and she would go on to prove this by using herself as bait and getting herself thrown into the TV. After being rescued and gaining a persona like the others, Naoto would join the team, serving as the much-needed brains of the group. Soon after this, Yu would receive a letter in the mail warning him to stop saving people. Unfortunately, Ryotaro would see this letter and would have Yu locked up for his own safety. As this was happening, Naoto would figure out who the next kidnapping victim would be, discovering it was none other than Nanako. Once told, Ryotaro would rush home, getting into a car chase with the culprit, but crashing before he could be caught. Not finding nothing but a TV in the car used, the investigation team would determine that he had fled into the TV with Nanako and would immediately enter the TV to rescue her. After retrieving them, they would discover that Taro Namatame, a politician who had had an affair with the first victim, had been behind the kidnappings and would be arrested, but due to his condition would be taken to the same hospital as Nanako and Ryotaro. Yu and the others would be forced to wait, but Naoto would inform them that the police were having a difficult time building the case, and shortly after this, Nanako's condition would worsen and she would pass away in front of Yu. The investigation team would then be able to sneak into Taro's room, with the team split on whether or not they should kill the man. However, after a heated discussion, Yu would convince them not to, feeling like they didn't have the full picture. After this, Yu and the others would discover that Nanako had somehow been revived and she was now in a coma. The next day, the investigation team would hear Taro's side of the story, learning that the first person he had put into the TV was Yukiko and not the announcer Mayumi, as well as that he had been tricked into putting people into the TV, truly believing that he had been saving people. After this, the team would meet up, and with Yu and Naoto putting their heads together, they would come to the conclusion that Ryotaro's partner, Toru Adachi, was the culprit, and they would confront him, causing him to flee into a nearby TV, proving the team's right. They would then follow him, only to find that he had a persona of his own and would do battle with the group. However, his power wouldn't be enough to stop them, and he would be defeated and would attempt to kill himself. But before he could, he would be possessed by a being known as the Mino Sagiri, which planned to cover humanity in a fog that would turn them all into shadows. The investigation team would fight the being, destroying it and retrieving Adachi, who would be arrested for his crimes. Over the next few months, the team would enjoy a normal life up until winter, when Yu would be informed by Margaret that Marie had gone missing and that she was going to leave to go find her, eventually finding her fellow attendant and summoning the team to rescue her. During this rescue, Marie would reveal that she was in fact a goddess but had come to where she was now to die. After a brief fight, Marie would come to her senses and would eventually use time in a Nava would come to an end, and he would say goodbye to everyone he had met during his year. But before he could leave, a letter from Adachi would arrive, causing him to discover the truth of his powers, as well as their source. The goddess Izanami would reveal that she planned to cover the world in a fog anyway and turn the humans into shadows. Seeing no other option, the investigation team would gather one last time and would face Izanami, forcing her to reveal her true form. But even as they tried their best, Izanami overwhelmed them. Nearly dying, Yu would hear the voices of all those he had met and grown close to, awakening his persona's true form, Izanagi no Okami, and killing the goddess. Now, with all threats taken care of, Yu would return home, saying goodbye to his friends. Wow. You guys really wanted me to make Johnny Young Bosch fight Johnny Young Bosch. Well, hey, if almost half the people who voted wanted it, then who am I to question it? Hello, and welcome everyone to the final bonus match for this season of the Versus series, where, due to the extended wait for Adachi versus Kira, knock on wood so it doesn't happen again, I decided to throw some ideas out for another bonus match to be delivered, and those of you who voted pretty decisively wanted Nero, the son of Virgil, to fight Yu Narukami, the leader of the investigation team, in a bonus match, once again using Nero as he was during the events of DMC 4, and Yu during the events of Arena Ultimix. Now, for Nero, all of his footage will be coming from his matchup with Cloud earlier from this season, and for Yu, while his weapons and combat skills footage will be coming from the Season 1 finale Persona Protagonist Battle Royale, I will be using an updated script for some updated feats and scaling in the physical and special abilities category. Right, with all that, nothing else to go over. Let's start by comparing these two physically. During the events of Devil May Cry 4, Nero is a 19-year-old human-demon hybrid standing at 6 feet 2 inches tall and likely weighing around 200 pounds. Nero is constantly fighting demons and would need to keep in excellent condition, once again likely being in peak physical condition. On top of that, Nero's demonic heritage grants him naturally enhanced strength, speed, stamina, and durability. Now, as a quick aside, I will be adding Nero's feats with the spectral form of the Devilbringer, as even though I don't consider them to be an accurate showing of pure physical strength, it is a natural ability he has access to. So, with that out of the way, Nero is incredibly powerful, having the strength to momentarily match and even injure Dante, who in his base form killed Argosax, whose mere presence was merging the human and demon worlds together. Overpowered house-sized demons, and using the spectral Devilbringer, he tossed around large demons like they were ragdolls, and even managed to crush the Savior's face. In fact, Nero has only been shown being explicitly overpowered twice during the events of Devil May Cry 4. Once in his second fight with Dante, and when the Savior captured him. Nero is fast enough to effortlessly dodge bullets at point-blank range, responded to a surprise attack from someone he considered an ally, single-handedly take on groups of demons, and even kept pace with Dante, though by his own admission, Dante had underestimated Nero in their first encounter. However, considering Dante managed to casually defeat the Blitz demon who moves at lightning speeds, and even casually by this point is faster than light, this is no small feat. Despite only being a quarter demon, Nero can still take a massive amount of damage and continue fighting. This amount was also boosted when he gained the Amato, as the demonic energy even resurrected him, and he's gained its demonic power. As shown when he momentarily survived being stabbed in the chest, and on top of that, Nero has a natural healing factor which allows him to heal from catastrophic damage, such as blows from high-powered demons. However, his healing factor is limited and nowhere near on the level of his father or Dante. And just like the Sons of Sparta, should Nero take enough damage, he will become weak and will eventually go down just like anyone else. During the events of Persona 4, Yu was a 17-year-old human male standing at 5 feet 11 inches or 180 centimeters tall, likely weighing around 170 pounds or 77 kilograms. While never stated directly in-game, it's likely that inside the TV world, a Persona user's physical abilities are buffed as shown by their godlike feats inside the TV world. Yu is strong enough to effortlessly cut through a bamboo as well as the coffin of a god, could break a large metal gear by throwing it to the ground. In Persona 4 Arena, could block strikes from Akihiko, and even destroyed his persona with a sword strike, and can damage and destroy powerful shadows with just his physical strikes, as shown when he held off Hino Kagasuchi, a powerful being that, while weaker, should be comparable to gods like Izanami and Yaldabaoth, both of whom were capable of merging two different universes together. And in Persona Q2 clashed evenly with the leader of the Phantom Thieves, Renamamiya. When it comes to speed, Yu is insanely fast, able to move at lightning speeds, dodge gunfire, as well as strikes from Akihiko, who can move at similar speeds. And again, being capable of evenly matching Ren in this area, with Ren's best feats making him massively faster than Light, dodging a Big Bang explosion, or keeping up with the immeasurable Thor, who comes from a higher dimensional plane known as the Expanse. His physical durability is overall above average, but only slightly, being able to survive a beatdown from Akihiko Sonata. But his magical durability is insanely powerful, as he was able to survive an attack by the goddess Izanami's avatar, Amino Sagiri. Both Nero and Yu are capable of, frankly, amazing showings in all areas, both scaling to around the same level no matter how you break it down, either being multiversal normally or planet level when lowballed, due to the universe merging gods in each series, merging quote-unquote worlds together. But I'm sure those familiar with my Persona matches will know that there is one area that is not like the others. In terms of strength, both of them are hitting around the same ballpark, with Yu by the events of Arena being able to hold his own against and damage Hino Kagasuchi, who should be comparable to beings like Cerberus, Izanami, and Yaldabaoth, all beings brought forth by humanity's will, with Izanami and Yaldabaoth being able to merge universes together, and Nero being capable of forcing Dante into his Devil Trigger state with his Devilbringer after Dante surpassed his father, whose power he used to defeat Amundus, who casually created another universe for him and Dante to fight in, and defeated Argosax in his base form, with Argosax merging the human and demon worlds together. So the scaling really evens out here, but even then I'm leaning slightly more towards Nero, as he was able to overpower Dante, even briefly disarming him in their second fight. In terms of speed, Yu easily takes this by scaling to Thor, who comes from a higher dimensional plane that transcends past, present, and future. But even scaling back to just use massively faster than light speeds, which Nero should scale to by even being able to keep up with Dante and a Sparta enhanced Sanctus, Yu still has the better track record of going up against characters with this level of speed, matching Adachi in the Persona 4 anime and being considered about even with him in Arena. defeating Akihiko Sanada after years of training in between the Answer and Arena, and stalemating Renamamiya. Meanwhile, the only reason Nero beat Dante at all in their first encounter was because Dante underestimated, and in their second fight, even by Nero's own admission, Dante was able to completely dominate the fight while toying, meaning that yes, while Nero can compete with these levels of speeds, Yu however has a much better track record against opponents with this same level of speed. However, there is a major difference when it comes to durability. True, you can tank roughly the same level of damage as Nero when it comes to magic damage, but against physical attacks, it is a completely different story, as you can only take a bit more physical punishment than a normal human, meaning that Yu is going to have to take great care in making sure Nero doesn't land any fatal blows with Red Queen and Blue Rose, while Nero will be able to walk off most physical damage done to him. Unfortunately, that pretty much seals this category, as while strength and speed are really slight advantages that can't be compensated for, the durability advantage is a complete game changer in Nero's favor, as he realistically only needs a single good hit to win, and so I have no choice but to grant Nero the edge in physical abilities. Nero will be bringing 3 weapons into this engagement: his custom greatsword, the Red Queen, his Blue Rose revolver, and his father's katana, the Yamato. The Red Queen is Nero's custom greatsword based off the Holy Knight's standard weapon, but equipped with a fuel injection system, which adds power to his blows, as well as being able to set the blade on fire. At first, the Red Queen would need to be charged to use this to its maximum effect, but Nero would later upgrade it, allowing him to charge it up if he timed the swing of his blade and the triggers for the system just right. However, getting the timing right can be tricky. The Blue Rose revolver is based off of a Smith & Wesson Model 500 double-action revolver, but was customized to have a more traditional 6-shot cylinder, as well as being equipped with a second barrel, allowing Nero to fire 2 shots at once. Nero can also channel his demonic energy into the revolver, massively increasing its damage output, but this does require time to charge, and while doing so, Nero cannot use the weapon. But Nero's most dangerous weapon is easily the Yamato, a katana-like sword that has been said to be able to cut through anything, though I personally believe that this ability is found in the weapon's magic rather than the blade itself. You will only be bringing a single weapon into this encounter: a custom-made katana made from the materials he found in the TV world. This weapon is roughly 3 feet in total length and can be used by you to channel lightning. This weapon was mainly designed as a slashing type weapon and does not hold up well against armored foes. Yu's persona, Izanagi, also wields a single naginata, giving him greater reach and decent defense. Yeah, this one's pretty simple to be honest. Yu's katana is a pretty good weapon, and its electric enhancements would let Yu hold his own against the Red Queen's enhanced strikes and the flame-covered blade, seeing as the katana can also deal out electrical damage and could briefly stun Nero, evening those weapons out, as even the style of the blades, with a thicker, harder hitting greatsword against a smaller, more maneuverable katana, each having advantages that more or less even out. And just like in Adam vs. Zack, the Red Queen simply won't be able to smash through Yu's katana, as being made with materials from the TV world, it's far more durable than a conventional weapon. And even the Blue Rose won't be much of an issue for you, as seeing as how he can dodge a big bang and can easily deflect the bullets or even the explosive rounds. But what I'm sure none of you were even questioning was the inability for Yu's katana to counter the Yamato's magic, even with Nero not having the same level of skill with this weapon as Virgil or even Dante, simply using it like any other weapon, but the innate abilities and power granted by the Yamato more than make up for this. And so I grant Nero the edge in weapons and equipment. As a human-demon hybrid, Nero has natural access to several magical abilities, as well as some granted to him by the Yamato. The Devil Bringer is Nero's right arm and the physical manifestation of his demonic power. He can use it to pull enemies closer, as well as bring himself to them, create a giant spectral version to grab onto them and slam enemies around like ragdolls. The Devil Bringer is also incredibly durable, taking several direct hits from Dante's Rebellion without so much as a reaction from Nero. Nero's body will naturally heal itself, and after absorbing the Yamato, this ability was boosted, granting Nero the ability to heal from mortal injuries. As stated literally 1 sentence ago, Nero absorbed the Yamato into his Devil Bringer, allowing him to summon it at will or use his demonic energy to enhance his abilities. One way he did this was by channeling the Yamato's power into the Red Queen, which he could then release as either a single energy slash or as a pair of them. Nero could also summon the blade itself before charging up its energy and then unleashing a devastating series of strikes meant to bring down opponents. Another power granted by absorbing the Yamato is a form I call the Proto-Devil Trigger. Unlike a normal Devil Trigger, this creates a large spectral demon that attacks with him using the Yamato. This form acts similarly to other devil triggers granting the user enhanced strength, speed, stamina, and durability, as well as the ability to actively heal at a greater rate than normal. However, it's my belief that the added buffs given to Nero are much weaker than the buffs Dante or Virgil would receive, instead being more comparable to the buff a normal demon would get from this ability. And finally, the last ability given to Nero through his devil trigger are his summoned swords, which are mostly used as a secondary projectile while he fires the blue rose. Yu's first persona was the god of creation, Izanagi, a mainly attack-based persona with the addition of several buffs and debuffs, with its main skills being lightning-based, with a few heavy damaging slashes-based attacks. Aside from his attack-based skills, Izanagi also has the spells Rakukacha and Tarukacha, which temporarily boost his defense and attack, as well as Rakunda, which lowers his enemy's defense, and finally Rakunda, which will remove any debuffs put against him in a fight. In terms of raw power, by the end of Arena Ultimax, Yu was able to provide half the power needed to destroy Hino Kagasuchi, who is stated by Elizabeth to be born from humanity's desire for death, meaning that this demon was brought forth by the same energy that created Izanami and Yaldabaoth, as well as Sentinel and Izanami no Okami, with the former being two universe-merging gods who required Yu and Ren, respectively, to have the will of the masses at their side in order to defeat. Yet in Arena Ultimax, Yu and Tadachi combining their base power was enough to defeat this being. And considering this was an even effort for both Yu and Tadachi, this means that Yu's magic damage output should be at least nearing multiversal levels, as while, yes, Hino Kagasuchi is likely weaker than these two, he is still on a similar level. And finally, for elemental weaknesses, he has a decent resistance to electric-based attacks and completely blocks curse skills, but is weak to wind attacks, which would explain why he lost to Yosuke in the Arena storyline. Okay, as a brief aside before getting into these two, I would like to say right off the bat that yes, I am aware that Nero does exist within the SMT multiverse, and that in Shin Megami Tensei Liberation DX2, he has resistance to lightning-based spells. However, I will not be granting this resistance to Nero within this matchup, nor will I be acknowledging any spells used in that game, as this is an examination of Devil May Cry 4 Nero, not a composite Nero. Now, with that out of the way, both Nero and Yu are surprisingly well-rounded opponents, with powers that allow them to do more than just attack as mindless berserkers, hoping that their respective overwhelming power wins the day. But while there is one power set bringing more options into this fight, the other skill set is able to be used more consistently. Starting with Nero's Devilbringer, I actually don't think it will be as big a help to Nero against Izanagi, as we've seen that Nero's Devilbringer isn't as capable against opponents that A, have the speed needed to evade his grasp, or B, have the power or skill needed to counter, all of which applies to Izanagi. But against Yu himself, it's a different story. Sure, Yu also possesses the speed needed to evade its reach and grasp, but that's basically his only counter. Up close, without a straight moving telegraphed reach, Nero would certainly be able to get a hold of Yu. And while yes, I think Yu would be capable of surviving a few hits thanks to its supernatural origins, one needs to remember that this is the same arm Nero used to fuck up Dante when they first met. And when I say that Yu would survive a few hits, I am no way comparing that to the absolute beatdown that Dante managed to survive. On top of the fact that the Devilbringer would be a virtually impenetrable shield against both Yu and Izanagi. So it's certainly an asset, but I don't think it's going to be his trump card like usual. Both of them have a few options for range attacks. However, Yu's are easily the more effective of the two, as Nero summons swords, even with the added buff of Nero's demonic energy enhanced bullets, simply are not bringing as much firepower as Izanagi's multiversal levels of magic output. But Nero does have projectiles that are on this level with the Yamato's magic energy slashes. But Nero can only use this projectile while using his Devil Trigger form, which he can only use for a limited time, meaning that overall, Yu's ranged abilities are superior. Now, when it comes to Nero's unique Devil Trigger up against Izanagi, there are a few key differences. First of all, Izanagi is not bound to follow Yu's movements like Nero's Devil Trigger, meaning that in a close quarters engagement, Izanagi is the far more practical spiritual being, as all you would need to do is watch for Nero's attacks a few times before he'd realize that the spectral demon is for the most part just following Nero's movements. And once he realizes this, all he would need to do in order to work around this would be to block Nero's attack, have Izanagi block the spiritual devil, and while that's happening, counterattack Nero. On top of the fact that Izanagi will persist throughout the entire fight, while Nero's Devil Trigger form can only exist for a limited time, meaning that Yu's persona is far more reliable in a practical sense. However, that's not to say that Izanagi is a complete counter to Nero's Devil Trigger, as he does have several advantages over Yu while in this state. For example, with his Devil Trigger activated, Nero gains increased strength, speed, and durability, on top of healing any injuries gained during the fight, along with giving Nero access to the Yamato and its magic capabilities. Or, to put it in persona terms, it's like if Heat Riser lasted an extra turn, healed you every turn, on top of giving you new attack spells, all more powerful than the ones you had before. So I will say that Nero's Devil Trigger state certainly won't be useless against Izanagi, and the boost he gains are better than those you can place on himself. But Nero is going to have to work harder to get the most out of this state than he would against most other opponents, as his typical strategy of overwhelming his opponents with the rapid strikes from both him and the Spectral Devil will not work in this fight, due to Izanagi essentially making it a 2-on-1 engagement. But Yu does have a couple of abilities that Nero would have to simply adapt to with his defense and attack buffs, which Nero can't dispel from Yu, as well as Rakunda, which will temporarily lower Nero's defense, meaning that unless he uses the Devil Trigger, he will be taking more damage than he will with the Devil Trigger, and even then he'll only be capable of taking slightly more damage than he would while in his base state, under the effect of this spell. Overall, I think Yu is just in a slightly better position overall, as neither of these two are really bringing anything to this fight that the other can't contend with, but once again, Yu having the advantage of his, well, advantages, such as the numbers advantage, which with Izanagi, his superior firepower, and his ability to buff himself up, all being consistent throughout the entire fight, while most of Nero's are tied directly into his Devil Trigger state, with the exception of his Devil Bringer. Now, just to say it one last time, Nero can absolutely contend with Yu even with these advantages, but he cannot surpass him in this area without the Devil Trigger. And once the Devil Trigger is activated, Yu is going to be in for the fight of his life and is going to have to adapt very quickly, or Nero will very quickly overwhelm him. But this will only be for a short time, and so I grant Yu the edge in special abilities. Nero was trained by Credo, the leader of the Order of the Sword's Holy Knight Division, and by the events of Devil May Cry 4 was considered to be one of the Order's best fighters. As someone who is trained to deal with hordes of demons on a regular basis, Nero would need to specialize in Shit-Show, a simple style designed for use against groups of opponents using wide swings to hit as many opponents as possible with one attack, often and best used against groups of lesser skilled opponents. Gemso was a combat style with a focus on defending until you can spot an opening and then counterattack, as well as being defined by its power blows. But it seems to me that Nero used a variation of Gemso which focuses on dodging rather than defense. In fact, Nero has no dedicated defensive options in combat, instead preferring to avoid attacks outright. Nero's approach to combat is essentially to overpower and physically dominate his opponent. In fact, I've seen his fighting style described as taking the moveset of forms 1 and 5 with the mentality of Form 7, which I think describes Nero perfectly. While he has been shown to be able to adapt over the course of a battle, he has also had issues when an opponent can't be overpowered or is trying to outfight him rather than overpower him, like simple demons, as shown in his second fight with Dante and when Sanctus used Kyrie to stop his assault. During the events of Persona 4, there is no evidence that Yu had undergone any training, meaning that his skills would have been entirely self-taught. However, that didn't seem to hold him back, as by the arena games, he was a skilled swordsman capable of going toe-to-toe with people who had been fighting for years. Due to the anime adaptation of Persona 4 choosing to forego giving antagonists weapons, I will be forced to rely on the original game and the arena games to figure out his fighting, which I believe to be Form 1 Shichi. This form was focused on wide sweeping motions primarily used on multiple opponents. However, this form suffered from being impractical against a single, well-trained opponent who could exploit its wide attacks. Truth be told, while being the leader of the investigation team, Yu's combat tactics are rather basic, with his standard method of engagement being to use different skills to experiment with an enemy's weakness and then spam that weakness until the enemy is dead, filling the role of buffer or healer as needed. Despite being a proficient magic user, Izanagi's main method of attack was rushing in with its Nagana to slash apart any incoming shadows in an aggressive rushdown style similar to Form 4 Ataru, a form focused on acrobatics and aggression meant to take down a single opponent. By the end of both of their respective journeys, both Nero and Yu had developed into skilled and powerful fighters, but there is still a clear winner. In terms of all other factors being null, in a head-to-head fight, Nero absolutely takes this category in terms of their style advantages, with Nero's Gemso being perfect for countering Yu's less refined, more group engagement-centric fighting style. Now, that's not to say that he would be entirely outmatched here, as Yu would certainly be able to hold his own against the quarter demon for a time. But remember, Yu wasn't fighting other Persona users 1v1 until the arena games, meaning that he didn't have nearly enough time to develop his skills against single, well-trained opponents like Nero. And while true, Nero is also used to fighting group engagements as a solo combatant, this just means he needed to hone his skills far more than you would have to, all on top of one-on-one fights against powerful demons being far more common in Nero's case. Against Izanagi, however, Nero is going to have a much harder time, as that persona has far more skill and experience than you himself, going toe-to-toe with, stalemating, or depending on which version of the story, even outright defeating his rival Magatsu Izanagi, who once again, depending on the version, either held off 7 other Persona users all at once, or destroyed several of Yu's more powerful personas, meaning that Nero will have his work cut out for him, and that he will not be able to rely on Shichou's more basic fighting style. As for Gemso, I typically don't think that Nero substituting blocking with evasion is as good as a tactic as simply blocking incoming attacks, especially with his chosen style of combat. But against Izanagi, Nero actually has a unique advantage he wouldn't have against most other opponents due to his size in comparison to Izanagi, who would stand over even demons like Burial, who Nero was able to use his comparatively smaller size against, as he's a much harder to hit opponent because of it. And with Izanagi's high momentum fighting style, if it misses an attack, there's a very real possibility it will be left open for one of Nero's counters. So overall, I think these two just about match each other, though Nero would have a slight advantage. There's also a pretty significant experience difference, as even by the event of Arena Ultimax, Yu has less than a year of combined combat experience between Persona 4, Persona Q 1 and 2, and Persona 4 Arena and Ultimax, while Nero, just by the events of DMC 4, would have been serving in the Order long enough to gain an infamous reputation, as well as being considered their best fighter, and had been training for years prior under Credo. Now, I will say that Yu does have the very slight edge in terms of tactics, being responsible for directing a team to exploit the weaknesses of several shadows throughout his time as leader of the investigation team. And while far from the most complex use of tactics, it is still more than Nero typically implements in his fights. Now, once again, Yu and Izanagi fighting together would be far more effective and could give Nero serious trouble as a pair, as while Nero is no stranger to team tactics, it has always been against multiple far weaker opponents. However, both Yu and Izanagi, while not as powerful as Nero, are challenging him in the physical department, and are smart enough to exploit their numbers advantage while also pressing him in skill. But Yu would be the weaker link of the duo, and as such, he'd need to be careful not to give Nero an opening, as while I don't see Nero as a very strategic fighter outside of basic battle tactics, I won't pretend for a second that he's too blind to see that Yu is the easier to fight between the summoner and the persona. Overall, however, Nero still takes this, as overall, he does have a pretty big advantage over Yu as swordsman, and has a unique advantage over Izanagi that the persona, mostly dealing with smaller demon-like shadows that attack blindly, or evenly sized skilled opponents, hasn't dealt with, never fighting someone as small as Nero, who is also as skilled and powerful as itself. And while Yu and Izanagi would be able to overwhelm him for a short time, but due to Yu being the weaker link and a glass cannon, this isn't an option for a long-term engagement, where you'll need to wear down your opponent over the course of a fight, as Nero is just far too likely to get that one hit on Yu he needs to defeat him. And so, I give Nero the edge in combat skills and tactics. Let's set up this fight. Let's say that, like Ren in Persona 5 Royal, Yu has access to a selection of challenges that Margaret can provide for him. However, rather than just facing Persona users from different time periods, Yu has challengers from all over the SMT multiverse. And that this time around, he chooses Nero, wanting to test what he's capable of by going in on his own and limiting himself to just Izanagi. Yu closes his eyes, having learned the hard way that keeping them open as the arena changes is a good way to fight with motion sickness, opening them once he feels the sun on his skin, opening his eyes to find himself on a floating platform above some sort of island city, and standing across from him on the other side of the platform is Nero, Red Queen slung lazily over his shoulder, looking at you with an amused sense of curiosity. You know, after the last wave I was expecting an actual challenge, but I guess some free orbs won't hurt. Yu, not quite understanding what the demon-armed man was talking about, doesn't waste any time, and summons Izanagi, immediately sending the persona in, smashing his naginata down onto Nero, with the impact creating a dust cloud that obscured the two from you. But as it clears, he sees that Nero has thrown up his Devilbringer and is now holding Izanagi's weapon in place as the persona struggles to break free. Now this is more what I was expecting. Nero then throws Izanagi back into the air before taking aim at the persona, but before he can fire the blue rose, Yu appears in front of him in a flash of lightning, cutting him across the chest. The Devil Hunter growls in pain before responding with an overhead strike that Yu manages to block, but is finding himself being pushed back. So, while keeping Nero busy, he orders Izanagi to blast Nero, electrocuting him and leaving him open as Yu pushes the Red Queen up and runs his blade into Nero's chest. However, this doesn't seem to really affect Nero as the electricity wears off, and he reaches out, grabbing Yu by the throat and lifting him up off his feet before slamming the younger teen down into the stone platform, cracking it under them. Yu rolls onto his side and begins to cough up blood as Nero turns back to the persona just in time to roll out of the way of a charge. Getting back up, Nero stares down Izanagi as the persona puts itself in between Nero and Yu. Then, with a flourish of its blade, a purple energy rises around both of the Devil Hunter's opponents. Nero and Izanagi rush in at the same time, with Izanagi striking first, but the blow is sidestepped by Nero, and Izanagi, not unable to completely stop itself, flies right past him, allowing Nero to reach out with the Devilbringer spectral form, grabbing the persona by the back of the neck while revving up Red Queen, and with a single powerful pull brings it back into striking range and slashes into the back of its knee, dropping the persona down into a kneeling position. Taking advantage of this, Nero leaps up at the persona and with a powerful blow from the Devilbringer strikes Izanagi right across the temple. However, thanks to its boosted defense, Izanagi is able to survive and retaliates with a powerful slash that throws Nero all the way across the arena, before following up with another electric spell that once again stuns him. Finally recovering, Yu gets to his feet, recasting his defense buff, but also casting an attack buff on top of it. Nero, meanwhile, has figured out that Izanagi is the far bigger threat between the two, and quickly forms a plan to get rid of the persona and then deal with Yu. Nero approaches slowly, revving up his Red Queen as he does so. Yu, however, sends in Izanagi first, following shortly behind to follow up Izanagi's attack with one of his own. But Nero doesn't meet the persona's attack head on, seeing right through this charge and sliding under it slides under the persona's attack into Yu before rising up to deliver an uppercut with the Devilbringer that Yu just manages to dodge, and while doing so manages to get his own cut down Nero's back. Being more irritated than hurt by the blow and looking over his shoulder, Nero sees that Izanagi is about to deliver a follow-up attack, and so, deciding not to waste any time, activates his Devil Trigger state and uses the Spectral Demon to deflect Izanagi's blow into the side. Meanwhile, Yu, while certainly surprised, is able to keep his composure and goes in for a decapitating strike to Nero's neck, only for the Holy Knight to barely glance in his direction before backhanding him away with the Devil Trigger, busting Yu's lip right open. Yu manages to look up just in time to see Nero meet Izanagi's blow with an enhanced strike from the Red Queen, actually managing to throw Izanagi off, leaving it open for the Spectral Demon to deliver an identical follow-up slash, taking off Izanagi's arm at the wrist. Nero then uses the Devilbringer to pull himself up to meet Izanagi before he and the Spectral Demon both drive their blades into his head, shattering the persona. As Nero lands, he turns back to Yu, who's gritting his teeth in pain before disabling his Devil Trigger, thinking that he won't need it now that Izanagi has been dealt with, and moves in to finish Yu off. However, Yu isn't down just yet, and with a strength buff still active, manages to deliver a powerful strike, taking Nero by surprise before ramming his shoulder into the Holy Knight and spinning around to charge up his electric blade, and delivers a powerful strike that actually manages to throw Nero back, creating distance. Enough distance to resummon Izanagi, taking Nero off guard, who in turn reactivates his Devil Trigger, intending to finish both of them off. The pair once again make a charge at Nero, but this time Yu is taking the lead, watching Nero closely, and responding to the older teen's attack with one of his own, deflecting the blow. And then as the follow-up attack from the Spectral Demon comes down, it is similarly blocked by Izanagi, surprising Nero, who is then forced to dodge and attacked by Yu before being shocked once again by Izanagi. Almost immediately, the direction of the fight is reversed as Nero is now finding himself on the defensive, blocking with his Devilbringer but is unable to respond as Yu keeps going all out, fighting as hard as he can alongside Izanagi and throwing powerful magic attacks whenever possible, getting in blows as often as he can, not giving Nero time to respond. And in fact, Yu is able to keep this up long enough to outlast Nero's Devil Trigger, and just in time too, as his buffs have worn off at the same time, something which Nero immediately realizes and takes advantage of with the first chance he gets, using his Devilbringer to catch Izanagi's blade, and then takes a cut from Yu. He then swings Izanagi at Yu like a ragdoll, who just manages to duck and takes a swing at Nero, who catches the katana and crushes it in his grasp. But Yu doesn't miss a beat and immediately charges the remnants of his blade with electricity, cutting Nero across the gut and stunning him once again, leaving him open for Izanagi, who reappears over Nero and slams down, impaling the Devil Hunter into the platform below. Yu pants, taking a moment to catch his breath when suddenly he feels his chest being stabbed, and he quickly recalls Izanagi as Nero now rises wielding his trump card, the Yamato, and he begins pulling his remaining demonic energy gained from the severe damage he's taken since his Devil Trigger ran out into the blade. Yu, hoping to end this immediately, buffs and sends in Izanagi once again, but this time he's taken off guard when Nero sends an energy slash at the persona that takes it out in one blow, creating an explosion that throws Yu to the ground. Hitting the ground with a dull thud, Yu is dazed, and before he's even able to push himself up, he feels the Red Queen stab into his chest and pin him to the ground. Looking up just to see Nero forcing the blade in deeper before losing consciousness. Now back in the Velvet Room, Yu jolts forward, clutching his chest and looking around frantically, until eventually his eyes land on an amused Margaret, who closes her compendium, suggesting that Yu take some time to grow stronger before attempting that one again. And with that, I declare Nero, the Holy Knight, the winner. Once again, this is a fight I was pretty confident in how it would turn out, and upon re-examining these two for the video, I only got more and more show that Nero would walk away the winner. Though, truth be told, it was a bit closer than I was expecting, but that's not to say that I thought it would be an easy win for Nero in general, as going into this, I knew what Yu was on. As going into this, I already knew that Yu was on a similar level to Nero, even surpassing him in some areas, but at the end of the day, this isn't enough to bring the Devil Hunter down. Physicality basically all came down to durability. While Yu and Nero both hold an advantage in strength and speed respectively, neither advantage is so big that the other would be overwhelmed. However, durability is a completely different story, as Yu will go down in a single hit from most of Nero's arsenal, basically gift wrapping the entire fight to Yu. And this is a perfect example as to why I equalize certain fights, as Yu's lack of durability played more of a factor than literally any other piece of information I gathered for this fight. Weapons basically comes down to both a versatility advantage and the Yamato, as Yu's katana matches the Red Queen point for point. However, that isn't enough to handle the combined use and power of the rest of Nero's arsenal. Special abilities was actually kind of weird, as on paper, it should actually be Nero walking away with the edge in this area, as he has more abilities and firepower. But the only issue is that these are directly tied into his Devil Trigger, a limited form that he cannot maintain for the majority of this fight. Meanwhile, even ignoring the time constraint of the Devil Trigger, Yu's own abilities are rivaling his own, but you can use all of his abilities throughout the entire fight, not just certain portions of it, giving him the overall advantage as they will aid him more over time than Nero's will in a couple of brief uses. Now, combat skills was very straightforward. Both Yu and Izanagi on their own would be a challenge for Nero for a time, though Izanagi would certainly last much longer than Yu himself. But together, I think they'd actually surpass Nero, as they'd be able to synchronize their movements, but this is once again only for a certain amount of time, as with Nero's skill level and Yu's lack of durability, Nero would eventually adapt, single out Yu as the weaker link, and with a single flawed opening, would be able to end the fight. In order to defeat Nero, you can't just overpower him, you can't just outlast him, and you can't just be more skilled than him. But at a bare minimum, you need to match him in two of these areas while overtaking him in another, all on top of being able to survive his Devil Trigger state and having a counter to the Yamato. And while Yu came very close to doing this, there are just too many areas where Yu falls behind. Not to mention the combination of falling short in two of these areas being an unrecoverable disadvantage, mainly durability and combat skills. Now, durability is a no-brainer. A single well-placed or lucky shot with any of Nero's weapons and Yu is finished. And in combat skills, remember, I said I think Izanagi would be a challenge, even almost matching Nero thanks to the advantage of their styles, but Yu is a whole other story. True, Yu has developed into a skilled fighter by the events of Arena, capable of going toe-to-toe with multiple Persona users, but the fact remains that neither you or Izanagi has ever fought anyone on the same level as Nero himself, Credo, Burial, or anyone even nearing the swordsmanship skills of Dante. And finally, Yu has no answer for the Yamato, which, while true, Nero never learned how to use this weapon as effectively as his father, the weapon is still far more dangerous than even Nero's Devil Bringer in terms of power, which can easily bring you down in just a few solid attacks, meaning that not only can you not take a solid hit from Nero, but you can't stop Nero from getting that hit in. Now, maybe if we see Yu again in a possible third arena game, he will reach the skill level needed to hold off Nero, but even that alone doesn't make up for the massive durability difference. But could Yu win? Yes, absolutely, but only under certain conditions. If he had equal or even similar durability to Nero, I do think that he and Izanagi's combined assault would eventually wear Nero down in the battle of attrition, as Yu would actually be able to soak up enough damage to hold his own in a straight up fight. And in that scenario, he'd know to play it smart, swapping between dealing out massive damage as a pair, buffing his defense, and attacking with Izanagi. And true, when Nero brought out the Devil Trigger, you would initially take a severe beating from it, but he would learn to fight defensively whenever Nero pulled it out. He would learn to adapt. As the main reason I don't see their combined assault as enough to challenge Nero is that they would need to spend far too much effort defending Yu, the far more vulnerable of the group, as if Yu is brought down, the fight is over. But if both were able to go all out and withstand Nero's attacks, Yu could certainly adapt to the Devil Bringer and the Devil Trigger. Or you could give him Izanagi no Okami, a persona that raises Yu's physical durability to the same level as his magic durability, and would give Yu so much power that even if Nero had mastered the Yamato just like his father, Yu would still be more powerful, as this persona allowed him to one-shot Izanami in Persona 4 before he was able to damage beings already on her level in Arena Ultimix, meaning that the power boost he would gain by the end of Ultimix would be far beyond that. And at that point, only Dante and Virgil themselves have been shown to have that much power. And even then, they would need to use their Devil Triggers to achieve this much power. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree that the silver-haired man voiced by Johnny Young Bosch would win? Or do you think that the katana-wielding teen voiced by Johnny Young Bosch would win? Let me know in the comments down below, and if I got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. Right, please rate, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, as I have plenty more like it. I also have a Twitter and Discord where you can talk to me directly, as well as links to the channels Winter Ghost and 3 Tactics Gamer, all in the description. Right, with all that, I'm Ray932, and I'll see you next time.